Hi, I'm Sherry Geyer with Joy-Filled Relationships, and this is our Tuesday Zoom Mastermind, which happens every Tuesday from noon to 12:30 on Zoom. And you can register for that and receive the link and a reminder each week by going to joyfilledrelationships.com/mastermind. Also, I'd love to connect with you. You can also do that at my website, joyfilledrelationships.com, and look for the tab at the top that says contact. So I would love to connect with you and hear about what's going on in your life. I am all about creating and building safer, healthier, more joyful relationships. And a lot of that is done by putting healthy boundaries in place. So thanks for joining me today. Our topic today is going to be dealing with have we ever felt defeated due to others' unspoken expectations of us? So let's dive in. Sometimes we may give a gift or show a particular kindness to someone, and their response is negative or not at all what we imagined it would be. There's no doubt that unfilled and unspoken expectations can negatively impact us and the experiences that we have in our relationships, especially when they're close to us. So have you ever considered that you may be making expectations of yourself or others that might be unspoken or might be just difficult? So when we can learn to surrender our expectations before the Lord, we can gain peace and contentment. He often tells us in his word that our expectations come from him. But often our expectations, when we're making them, we're not really speaking them. We may think that because we've known someone a long time or they've been in our lives, most of our lives, or even all of our lives, that they should know what we want and need. And then we may be subconsciously communicating that they if and when they meet these expectations is the only time we can be happy or satisfied or content. So it's like we're playing a game with unspoken expectations. It's like we're playing a game and no one has the rules. And trying to live up to these expectations, whether unmet or unspoken, is very exhausting. The reason for this is because expectations, when placed on someone with a requirement in our minds, either openly or secretly unspoken, is a subtle form of control. And control is the opposite of surrender. Surrender is where we cease from resistance. And resistance is our refusal to accept or comply with something. Maybe it's with the limitations someone else has on meeting my expectations. They may resist doing that. I may resist doing that. But if someone else does it, I may try to control them by the way I treat them, usually by withdrawing from them or showing anger. After all, my feelings, maybe they just straighten up and fly right, then I would be okay because my expectations of them could be met according to what is suitable for me. But wait, what's in that for them? If they're meeting my expectations and struggling, exhausted to do it, what are they getting? That should help us to realize that even though we may have known them for a long time, they're not mind readers. So when we create the expectation that we have to have things according to what we want or imagine to be content, that places stress on the relationship. And when that happens, we can very quickly usher in estrangement in the relationships. It's sort of like we ask someone that may be coming to our home for dinner, what would you like for dinner? And you just decide, well, maybe they don't know or they don't give you an answer. So you just guess out of the blue, out of all the thousands of possibilities that might exist, and you happen to hit it right. But there's so much stress because you don't know and you want to meet expectations that it's not the joyful experience that it could be. So the way I look at this is we really have two feasible options in dealing with either our placing unmet or unspoken expectations on others or when they're placed on us. But let's talk about us as though we're the one requiring these expectations or wanting these expectations to be met by someone else. So our two options could be that we would share our expectations, make them known. If they're unspoken, make them spoken so that they can understand what we're asking for. This doesn't guarantee that they will be met by others. They still have the option not to meet them. But the other option is that we could forgo our desire to control and release them and from the tyranny of our expectations, because that's what it is. If we're holding something over their head and we're withdrawing or we're showing anger when we're not getting them to do things and meet our expectations, then it's like tyranny for them. It's exhausting. When we don't recognize or acknowledge our emotions, we set our own selves up for frustration and disappointment. And then, as I mentioned a few moments ago, this creates a pathway for a chaos and a breach or distancing in our relationships. So when we become aware of our spoken, stated, or unspoken expectations, we can make a conscious decision regarding what is reasonable and what is necessary in our minds. And then we can exchange these unspoken expectations we place on other people for the peace and contentment of trusting God with our expectations. And that doesn't mean we should never expect anything, but we should only do that after communicating with the other person. Hey, here's what I'd like to see happen. Here's what I want or need. Are you able to meet these? Are you able to be a part of this? So I'm convinced that when I have in the past, I hope I don't do this routinely now, but when I've had these unspoken expectations of others, of God, of myself, it really sets me up to feel hurt, angry, resentful, disappointed, often sad. And it can impact a lot of areas in my life. So once I worked to become aware of these things and that others should not be expected to live up to them or required to meet them, then I can choose once I realize what I'm doing, I can choose to let go and surrender to what will be. And by surrendering this outcome, I can then give others and myself the freedom to enjoy whatever comes. I can possibly gain respect. And also, I may learn other ways to have my expectations met, but I'm taking the burden off me to try to motivate them and them to try to appease me. So this path is what brings more joy in our relationships. And I'm certain it brings more joy in the relationships with others once we let them off the hook. So, Jesus was no stranger to folks holding unspoken expectations of him. The Pharisees and the religious leaders, they expected their king of the Jews to come in a less lowly fashion as he entered the earthly realm to deliver his people. Jesus didn't fit the bill of how their king was to be resplendent in all their expected glory when he came by way of a child born in a manger. He didn't play by their rules. He didn't measure up in their eyes. They sought to ridicule, mock, and shame him, and ultimately to kill him. Have you ever felt this way? Have you ever held nothing but a desire for good in your heart for another, a friend, your spouse, a parent, neighbors, siblings, coworkers, only to have them think the worst of you? Instead of them seeing your gestures of goodwill, what you've said to them offends them, fell short of their um, expectations of what they want or need for you. In essence, you were weighed and found wanting in their eyes. And the sad part is their expectations may possibly never have been communicated to you, and you simply had no way of knowing and no recourse. Jesus may have felt this same way when he stood before Pilate listening to the Jews' accusations of him. Ironically, Pilate found no guilt in Jesus. Jesus was only given the sentence to be crucified because it was time for Passover, and the Roman custom allowed for a known and condemned criminal to be released and another accepted in their place. So Jesus became the sacrificial lamb for you and me, for all that I've done wrong and all that you've done wrong. He became that person. But the expectations on him were that he should have looked, been, and came in different ways. So he becomes our eternal hope that never fades away. So our expectation is in him. And guess what? Now God wants me to offer that love and forgiveness to others, just like Christ has for me. And that's what sets me free. So my expectations now, as I mentioned, comes from the Lord. I want to live as Christ lived. And I want to set that model for others, that I will communicate what my expectations are, and that I will ask if I'm not certain of what they're expecting of me. So I hope that this has been helpful for you as you learn to navigate through these things, these expectations, and that others may place on you, or if you've struggled with people not meeting your expectations and maybe didn't realize or that you were making them they were unspoken, that you were not communicating them in a way that they could understand. I hope this will give you pause to think about how it could be best offered in the relationship, so that you could experience in your relationships greater joy. Only good can come from all the ways that I know I've failed, and others may have even perceived me as failing. The good comes because, like my mother used to always say, in every situation, we either get the win or the lesson. So if you've had expectations placed on you that were unreasonable or unspoken, and you felt like a failure because others have not been kind, or their responses to your goodwill have not been positive, I hope that you will learn from that and ask God to help you gain what he wants you to gain. And that if in the best of ways, that you will be able to model for others what Christ's love for us, the sacrificial love where he laid down his life for us. And even then, his expectation for us is that his love first would help us to then love him. So I finally decided that, as a child, we get the lessons first and then the test. But most often as an adult, we receive the test and then we get the lesson. And that's certainly true in the realm of learning to set and manage healthy expectations. So when the lesson still helps me to win, however small it may appear, it is worthy of me celebrating what I've learned and how I will grow through it. Because when we've all done the best we can, we know what his well done feels like deep down in our soul. And that is enough, regardless of what others may think about us or say. So I hope that this has especially been helpful for you and will give you pause to consider how your expectations coming from God. He's the one that never fails us. And he also helps us to temper what to ask of others, and also to be able to safely and respectfully say no when we're unable to meet the expectation of others. So again, I hope to see you here Tuesdays, Mastermind, 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. And you can register at joyfilledrelationships.com/mastermind. When you do that, you will receive a link for the Zoom meeting, and each week, an hour before we meet, you'll receive a reminder again with the Zoom link, so you won't have to hunt for it. It'll be handy for you. So I appreciate your joining me. Look forward to next time. Thank you, and God bless you.